I'm talking about awaiting execution for a crime he didn't commit. Beat him. Torture. He signed a statement that sent us to prison. That was all they had on us. Never had no evidence. Couldn't find nobody that know the victims, that know us. I'm saying right to this day, why? Why me? Out of all the people in the world, why me? You know, for a long time. I'm talking about, I'm sitting in the cell, and I had filed my last appeal, and I knew it was going to come back denied because the justice system was never working in my favor. And one of the sheriffs called me and said, you got to go to court. You got to go to court. I ain't got no court date. I'm waiting on my appeal. Went to court and broke down in tears. Called my lawyer to say, they finna let you go home. I'm like, why? After they let me go, I discovered all the things went wrong. Prosecutorial misconduct, lies, cheat, steal. My problem is, if you swore an oath to get in public office, then the public have trust in you. And when you violate that trust in the public, I feel that you should be punished. I understand the immunity that prosecutors have when they do what they do. I mean, that goes with anybody. If you give me immunity, ain't no telling what I might do. But I don't have it immunity. I don't understand why, if you was a prosecutor and they give you a case, I understand your job is your livelihood. You got to pay your mortgage, you got to feed your kids, you got to take care of your wife. So if they give you a case and tell you prosecute this case, and you smell a rat, something ain't right with this case. You should be able to bring it forward. That burden shouldn't be on you to send an innocent man in prison just to get a notch in your belt and keep your check and feed your family. And that is the justice system that we have in America today. It ain't only happening in Chicago. It's happening all over. To where we put our trust in the public, in the people that we elect to public office. Notice what I said. Everybody that was supposed to help me didn't help me. On the side of the police car say serve and protect. Nobody cared about me, nobody protected me. Prosecutor's job is to seek the truth. Prosecutor came in there and told 1,000,001 lies on me. The judge's job is to seek justice. The judge say send them to the gallows. That's the system that we have in America. I'm a firm believer that voices make choices, and choices make change. Y'all the future. Do your job.
Thank you, Marvin, for helping us understand that race matters. It's still there. Also, thank you for helping us to understand that we are not in a post-racism era. Okay? We're not there yet. I hope that one of these days we're going to get there. So, the next person is Marlene.
Thanks, everybody. It's good to be here. I just wanted to say, in case folks don't know, just a little bit about myself. Marvin and I spoke last night to a packed audience. We also did the anti-lynching tour there. And someone mentioned, that they might be curious as to, folks might be curious as to how I got involved in doing campaign to end the death penalty work. So, just that I've been doing this for more than a decade. I became kind of radicalized when I was in college, so much like you all, had my eyes open to the injustices of the world, and got involved actually in a socialist organization. I am a socialist, so full disclosure. And I also work with the campaign to end the death penalty, and we have chapters in various cities. We do have a chapter that is in Harlem. Actually, somebody's here from the chapter, and they're going to circulate a petition So if you all want to know about events that are coming up in the city, if you're interested, make sure you sign up. We also helped to produce a newsletter, which we have copies of. There's a speech that Marvin gave that we reprinted. We have prisoners' voices in there and so on, so people can get a copy of that as well. So, so we've been on the road, kind of doing this speaking tour for this year. Okay, sorry, okay. About a month ago, I went to hear someone speak in Chicago, Illinois, a man named Simeon Wright. He's the cousin of Emmett Till. Emmett Till was 14 years old when he was lynched in 1955 in Mississippi. Two white men came in the middle of the night, pushing themselves in the door and holding a pistol to Emmett's uncle's head. As the two men left with Emmett that night, they stopped and they asked Emmett's uncle, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 63. They said, "If you want to live to be 64, you never saw us." That night, Emmett was brutally tortured, he was killed, and he was dumped in the river. When I heard Simeon Wright, he was a cousin of Emmett Till, and he was in the bed that night when Emmett was dragged from the bed. When I heard him speak, it made me think about how blacks are snatched up today by the criminal justice system. That maybe the tools are different, and that instead of the white, the white men in the white hoods and the white robes, it's more like white men in black robes banging a gavel rather than tying somebody up with a rope. Because Marvin, like Emmett, like he said, was snatched up in the middle of the night. Police also pushed the door in, had revolvers pushed at his face, shackled his hands and feet, took him out into a paddy wagon. He wasn't set free until 21 years later. And Marvin's case, like he said, is caught up with the Burge torture scandal case, which for 20 years John Burge and white police officers and detectives tortured. This isn't me just saying it, or even just the prisoners. This is investigative reporting. This is the police-owned reports show that over a 20-year period, nearly 200 African-American men and Latino men were tortured and sent to prison. Tortured in the sense of suffocated with typewriter bags until they passed out, electrical prods, electrical shocks to their earlobes and genitals, cattle prods were used, Russian roulette. These were the kinds of torture that these men, and as Marvin said in his case, Ronnie Kitchen, that's how I came to know Marvin, was actually through working with a campaign to end the death penalty, because Ronnie was sent to death row. When I started to visit death row and working with some of the prisoners, I started to hear these stories about what had happened to them, and they got organized in prison. They actually formed a group called the Death Row 10. It was actually 13 of them were sent to death row. And then that's how I found out about Marvin, because he was a co-defendant. There are still, to this day, 24 torture victims that are still incarcerated in Illinois prisons. None of the police officers have ever faced a day in jail for what they've done. John Burge, who was the commander and the overseer of the torture, is finally coming to trial May 24th, but only on obstruction of justice charges because the statute of limitations have ran out on the torture, which actually some lawyers are working to try to change that so that statute of limitations never ever run out on something like torture. The campaign, the death penalty, we're a very activist group. We've been organizing to get the word out about May 24th to say people need to get out into the streets, and it's time for John Burge to trade places with some of the individuals that he tortured that are still in prison. So the panel is entitled, the theme of this tour is Lynching Then and Lynching Now. And it's an attempt to really draw out the legacy of racism in our criminal justice system. So I want to talk a little bit about lynching.